All right. You probably didn't hear that. I get this little like AOL Instant Messenger
I did.
voice. Oh, you did? Oh, okay. That
And I
really
had to
sounded like.
say I understood and click continue.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, we are recording. This is Assessing Remotely. There's my title slide. I am Tom Mulaney. I'm coming to you actually from North Carolina, Hillsborough, North Carolina, wonderful small town
I've
in the
been
western, in the western part of the triangle. It's a
Gorgeous.
fantastic place. Gorgeous nature, charming downtown. I'll be going there later to the co-op, get some cake. And anyway, my contact information is on here, my email and my Twitter. And I am not from Texas. I've only been to Austin, which probably would make most Texans, roll their eyes at this tourist. But one of my favorite podcasters is based out of Houston, or he's from Houston. So I know who Mattress Mac is. But anyway, let's keep going. All right, this is brought to you it's a collaboration between Dell Technologies and Advanced Learning Partnerships, the Dell Texas Learning Network, and I am part of ALP. Our values include perpetuating trust, cherishing the value of people, realizing opportunity, and serving with gratitude. And after this school year, to have the honor of working with teachers from my very own home, I am very grateful. All right, a couple of outcomes for our session today. Participants will be prepared to facilitate students' use of creativity in both projects and small-scale assessments to show what they've learned. Participants will use multiple choice assessment data to empower learners. We're talking all things assessment today. So I want to talk both about the student creation and, hey, a lot of teachers, their curriculum, they're asked to, get data and multiple choice and whatnot. So I want to talk about that a little bit. I've shared with you, Lynn, the link to the agenda, so you have it. That agenda also has the link to the slides. I'll just really quickly show the agenda, and something I like to always point out now in Google Workspace. Let me just blow this up a little bit. Let's go to maybe 150. There we go. If we click on slides now in Workspace, we get this little open preview. So you can see my slides. You can even see my speaker notes without ever opening up the slideshow, as you can see. All
Nice.
right. Yeah, I know. This is a really great. They have that works for slides. It works for docs. So if you link a doc inside of a doc, it works for YouTube videos. I would really like it to work for Google Forms, maybe someday. All right, let's do a little quick framing. Technology and equity. It does not solve equity problems. It is an accelerant, though. It makes equitable teaching more inclusive, oppressive teaching all the worse. I will briefly touch on a tool later called Screencastify, because students can use Screencastify. And
I know about ChrisThat, and I know about my VR spot.
Oh yeah, well, with Screencastify, I always like to make that a little concrete. So if I'm a teacher and I'm using Screencastify and I'm making Screencastify videos for my kids, I could say, oh, hey, students, guess what? I made these videos for you so that you can watch them at any time, at any speed, whenever works right for you, because I know you need multiple opportunities to learn because you're human beings. Or as a teacher, I could say, guess what, everybody? Everyone's going home every night and watching me lecture on Screencastify, and you're responsible for watching all of those videos at home each and every weeknight. And you have the technology, right? So there's two very different approaches to using technology. So just be very mindful about that.
I wish I had it when I was a kid, because I would get home and look at my homework and I would forget everything the teacher said. And I knew it when I was in class.
Well, I once heard somebody say that multiple opportunities to learn, and I just always have remembered that. We all need, last week, on Memorial Day weekend, I was cat sitting for somebody, and I had to refer, they had shown me, they had typed it up, but I had to refer to the typed up directions multiple times to, oh, it's a quarter can of tuna, a half can of wet food, whatever it might be. Anyway, we all need those multiple opportunities. When your kids have technology such as Dell, say Chromebooks or devices, please ask yourself, are students being creative? Do they have multiple opportunities to learn? Can they easily access work and materials? We're really going to get to, especially that first bullet point today.
Okay.
All right. I tell teachers all the time now, welcome to the open book era. And this was before March 11, 2020. And you know why? because of this. I mean, it was especially true, in the early and mid stages of the pandemic with everyone at home. But right now, most of our kids, not all, but most, have one of these. And so no matter what, and sometimes these things are great. If I want to find out the release date of a movie, I'm going to find it out and meet like right here, right?
Mhm.
But if I want to find out some things that might be arguable, then maybe it's not such a good way of doing that. But our kids are going to do that, and we do that in our lives, right? So we need to accommodate for that and just accept that. We can't fight that anymore. We are in the open book era. It was made painfully obvious by the pandemic, but it's not changing because the pandemic ends, or is gradually getting better, more so in the United States than other places, if I'm being accurate. Okay. The purpose of assessment, we're talking about assessment today, is to understand student performance and provide opportunities for feedback and growth. We should let kids do more than multiple choice tests and research papers to show what they have learned, whether or not we are in a pandemic. All right, so we'll start off with some PBL. I hope this is of use to you, we'll say. Can teachers move away from multiple choice for end of unit assessments? Try having students be creative to show what they learned. And so I'm just going to go through some ways. And first of all is audio. We know this is a golden age of podcasting. I think, I was about to say Scandal. It's not Scandal. It's Serial. Serial is what launched podcasts have existed since the early zeros. But they really came into their own and became a big thing with Serial. And so there's a great app for podcasting or recording, basically making recorded audio projects, and that's called Soundtrap. And Soundtrap is freemium. You can go more than just the free, but I will say this, I use Soundtrap, the free version, and free version will only give you 5 projects. So if I get to my 5 limit, I have to go delete the oldest one. But when I enter the studio, this is some really relevant and useful stuff for our kids. When I enter the studio, I can do a music track or a podcast track. If I do a music track, so we'll just do that later. It's a new, well, here I add, there it is, okay. The amount of instruments that you can do, I mean, any music teacher should know about this and use it, but if your kids make a quick podcast to show what they've learned or to teach others what they've learned, they can make their intro, outro music, audio content all in the same file. I mean, it's really cool. And the other thing they can do is that they can collaborate. And I will say this is a little bit like collaboration in, say, like Google Forms or Google Sites or Google My Maps, where the collaboration isn't like right that second like it is in Google Docs, where you just immediately see what the other person did, but it's still pretty good and pretty robust. So that's really, really nice. And one of the things with the collaborators is you can call somebody. So if you need to interview somebody, you can just call them and record it in Soundtrap. Pretty nice. So anyway, Soundtrap, I highly recommend for audio projects. And let's
Gotta check and see if it's one of the blocked things, because they found some ways the kids were abusing the system and getting into other things through some of these sites. So I've got to check on this one.
Yeah, take a look. One other one I suggest is WeVideo, again, freemium, and it will, with the free version, you have a huge bug. But if you want a web-based video editor, WeVideo works nicely. For cartoons, if your students, for animation, if your students have tablets, get Toontastic 3D. It's especially really good for the elementary kids. There are story structures, so, rising action, climax, lab report template. Students can create their own characters. Great for, my kids don't have a media release and I want to have them make video. Well, they can make animation. There are other examples of, Powtoon is a good web-based tool. I just say if your students do have access to any kind of tablet, skip Powtoon and go right to Toontastic 3D.
Okay.
And
so you're saying Toontastic is a step up from Powtoon on the free aspect?
It is. I would say it is, because you design the characters, you design the backgrounds, you can insert your custom images. It's got story structure. It doesn't do that thing where it spells out what the person is saying. You know, you just kind of like, you just hear it, but they don't do that bubble thing that I think a lot of people don't like. Again, if tablets are available. For older students, might be a little rough, but for your younger students, it's some good stuff.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is that have your kids use mapping tools, specifically two from Google My Maps and Google Earth. In social studies, ask them the question, what are the important locations in this unit? In English language arts, what are the locations in this novel? In science, what locations on Earth illustrate the concept we're learning, right? Location plays such a big part in learning. And I'll show a couple things here. One, this is a blog post from relatively early, it was April 29 of last year. So relatively early in the pandemic, where Google My Maps, I can't do a whole thing about Google My Maps right now, but what I can tell you is that these are maps that people were using for food banks, COVID-19 testing sites, that people were, these are not educators. These are people in the real world. You see this all the time. I've seen stories about real estate in Durham, North Carolina, and they illustrate it with the Google My Map. So many people use Google My Maps. It's a real world tool. I highly recommend it. The other tool I would suggest is Google Earth Projects. And just real quick, while I have you, I'll just show you that projects is one thing, Voyager is another. Voyager is so good because it has these kind of tours ready to go already. Basically, you just search Google Earth for these and they come up. So if I search World War I, the World War I tour will come up. There's maybe 2 or 3 World War Is. So many cool things in here. But we can make them ourselves with this icon here called projects. And you create, and we'll just create a save to Google Drive. You can well, let's see, where did you say you were again?
Beaumont, Texas.
Beaumont, Texas. Okay, so let me search for Beaumont, Texas. It's a city in Texas, it says. Okay. Now, one of the nice things is that they actually give you a little more info card here. They give you some stuff, but I can add this to a project and we'll just call it new project, and we'll give it a title, June 1. We'll hit save. And once I have Beaumont in there, I can add images. I can, if I hit this replace, so now I can add images, I can add video. I have a rich text editor that includes hyperlinking. One thing I will say is that you have to, especially if you're demoing these to your kids, or if your kids are presenting theirs, motion sickness can be a thing because it'll go from place to place and fly around. So just be careful. We all, you never know. And maybe preface that, hey, just so you know, this is going to go in the air right now. So if you have motion sickness, be careful. But that's, and once we're back in person, you can do this. Students can present these on a smart board to the rest of the class. Really, really nice stuff right there. So that's just a couple of geography tools that I highly recommend. All right, let me get back to the session, which has got to be over.
I'm an advocate for that because the kids learn more about the rest of the world if they can see that and have stories to relate to that part of the world. 100%
agree. And it really, I think it also just kind of shows that people are people. I think kids need to learn that sometime. We're not different from each other.
Yes.
Canva and Piktochart, just for if you want your kids. I understand that brochures are not, more people make their living designing and making websites now than making brochures, right? That typical project. But, sometimes brochures are made, or infographics, or posters, or flyers, or things like that. And so if you want your kids making infographics, print materials, Canva and Piktochart, I will say Canva is my number one. Piktochart's a little bit better, maybe if you're doing it with data, although, you can, I think we could argue either way, but there's so many people both in and out of education that use Canva, and it just makes everything look so good. So there's nothing wrong with having your kids make and create with those two. And book, yeah.
a mindset because a website's one place and you have to go to it. If you make a brochure, you're handing, even if it's by email, information.
Yeah, it's very true. And that's the thing is that, the standard is, oh, if my kids have Chromebooks, are people using that in industry? Well, in business, well, one, I gotta say, every time I go to a supermarket and they're doing, people still do the personal shopping, they always use Chromebooks. The people the staff who are, filling out those orders are always using Chromebooks. And
Mhm.
two, the standard isn't Windows, it's not Mac, it's not even Chromebooks, it's the web. Now, more and more things beyond the very, very top, Final Cut Pro, those top level things, most people do their business on websites. It's the web is the standard now. But with that, I wanted to, and then again, this one is a little younger book creator. You could probably use it with secondary students, but it is really good for making kind of like ebooks. One reason I really like it is that when we add an item and we click on media, there are so many different things you can do. You can record your sound, right? So 3, 2, 1, I'm going to record my sound of me talking here, and then it goes in there and I can use the recording. And then, the kid or the teacher, whoever wants to use the tool, can be multimodal, but we can also use our camera, which I'm sure this won't work. Yes, it's not because I'm using my web. It's a long story. Wait a second. Oh, yep. It's a long story when I'm on Zoom or it's a whole thing.
I
Your
get
kids
it.
won't be leading a Zoom call when they use this, but they can also click this import. And here they actually can import maps. Speaking of maps, but they can also embed. And when we say embed, you can embed all sorts of cool things: Google Forms, Adobe Spark, even Google Sheets or Flipgrid. But YouTube, you can put YouTube videos in there.
And can you embed this into like Google Classroom?
Well, embed, I don't want to use the word embed, but you can share it in Classroom.
Link to Google Classroom.
Yes, you can link it in Classroom, sure. Let me
Better
see.
word.
In fact, if I go to my books and I go here and I click the share button, publish online. No, yeah, here, copy. It's just copy public link to share, link to clipboard is basically what
Okay.
it is. I know a lot of apps have that Classroom API, but it's the same. It's just like you just share the link and you're good. I just like Book Creator because it's multimodal and we get to do that. All right, I'm going to keep going because we're only here till 5:15. I'm in Texas right now. I will say there's so many things you can do if you're using Google Workspace or kids can do to be assessed and be creative. One thing I do want to show you all real quick is, I showed you how to add audio to Book Creator. You can do that in Slides as well. The Moto Chrome extension, which it always is asking me to allow. One thing I would like Moto to improve is it does constantly make me sign in. However, once you're signed in, yes, I've done this a million times, Moto, sorry. Once you do that, I can now record sound, make this presentation multimodal, give a little audio, and
What
it's
is
going to
that?
insert that.
What did you use for that?
All right, so that's a Google Chrome extension called Moto. If I don't have that linked, we can just find the link at the end of this. It's called Moto, M-O-T-E. And what it does is that audio in Slides is fine, but you have to make sure it's viewable in Google. It's from Google Drive and it has to be viewable to the world. Moto automates all of that, so you don't have to worry about that. It also, you can give kids feedback in Classroom. You can give kids Motos in Google Docs. You can, it's really powerful tool, especially if the kids also have Moto installed, because what happens is they can now listen to you and with just this play button, basically. So if the student doesn't have Moto installed, they can still hear you, but it opens a new tab, which is not ideal. So it's the kind of thing where your best bang for your buck, and it's a freemium tool, but the free version is plenty, basically. the best bang for your buck is if both teacher and student have it installed. The good news is that you should be able to now listen to this now if you don't have Moto installed, which is I really like that. Its integration in Google Slides is really chef's kiss, really nice. Okay, one last thing, and I put this in the PBL section just because I think this website, Beyond the Bubble from Stanford History Education Group, is a really nice resource for getting, in this case, history teachers, thinking outside of that whole standardized test, multiple choice. Oh, I have to admit somebody. Thing. That to me is really nice. Hi, Rob. I'm sorry I didn't admit you sooner, but I will put oh, no, give me 1 second. I'll put the agenda in the chat. And I had the agenda up. Maybe I'll just put the slides in the chat. There is a link to the agenda in the slides too. Because I copied that book creator book. And I don't think you want that, Rob. All right, we're on slide 22 or 21. So anyway, I was just finishing up talking about Stanford Beyond the Bubble. It's just a great resource for getting teachers to think a little differently about assessment. All right, with that, we love PBL, right? It's a wonderful, at the same time, there are some challenges with projects. It's a lot to manage. You have group dynamics, right? What if we can do maybe smaller creative things that can happen more often, more frequently, and much lower stakes? And so that's why I do a section on quick creative assessment, single lesson, small scale creative activity. Let those kids use those creative muscles every day. So a couple things. One, we talked about Soundtrap earlier. Soundtrap's amazing. It's got voice editing, you fade in, you cut your clips. But what if I just use Vocalvocaroo? Vocalvocaroo this is why I suggest this for teachers to have students use. So let's say you want your students to all hear each other in a class discussion, but class discussion oftentimes is just we type it, right? Well, this website, Vocalvocaroo, have a look at this. I am recording myself speaking on the topic of assessment. Now I hit stop, but there's a save and share button. And right here, I have a copy to clipboard. So if I have a Google Classroom or Schoology discussion, I could have students just record themselves in Vocalvocaroo, paste that link, and they'll hear themselves. I think that is fantastic. Makes it a little bit more interesting, more multimodal. My one caveat is I don't really know much about Vocalvocaroo. I've used it, I've demoed it, hasn't caused me any issues. They haven't helped themselves to my credit card or anything like that. But I wouldn't, because I don't really know it's not Google, it's not a huge company. I wouldn't have kids use their name or their address or anything like that. They should just stick to speaking about what the topic is. But other than that, I think Vocalvocaroo, no hesitation for me for that quick little audio. All right. I'd also suggest Flipgrid and Screencastify. Flipgrid is fantastic for those kids who they don't want to type their response to the discussion prompt, but they want to participate. I would say that for students without media releases, you might have to be careful, but there's puppets, there's masks, there's a lot of things you can do to get creative with that. I'd also suggest Screencastify if you just want student screencasting. There is a nice tool, but it's a paid tool called Screencastify Submit, where students don't need Screencastify and it just makes them screen record. It's really cool, but it is a paid feature. And okay, back to here. Okay. The next thing is drawing for quick creative assessment. So the research, I just linked this research because I just think it's so compelling. It's very clear. If you want to learn something, draw it. And Google has 3 wonderful tools for drawing. They're called AutoDraw, they're called Chrome Canvas, they're called Jamboard. I should have AutoDraw. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. And I will actually move I have all 3 of these. Okay. So AutoDraw is so cool. So let's say I want to draw planet Earth for something. So I'm actually make my background black. This is the auto draw pen. And I draw, and I'm going to draw planet Earth. So let's see if I can do it. And let's see, it thinks it might be a cookie with a bite, bread or other bread, or, well, that looks like North and South America on Earth. But what if I want Asia? What if I want Africa? I have these choices. I also have other planets, but we'll go with North and South America. And I'll just quickly fill up with some, let's do some blue for the oceans, and let's do some green for the land. And so you see, I have this nice thing, and I don't know how to draw, and I'm not using a touch screen, but auto draw gives me that. It also gives me text. It gives me a free draw tool, although I don't know why you would need it, considering how cool this is, or the auto draw features are. But it's really nice. No sign in. You have to use it or lose it. So you go to that 3-line veggie burger menu, and you click download, and now you have it. But there is no sign in, which is a blessing and a curse, right? It's a blessing that nobody has to sign in anything, nothing, but at the same time, you have to save it. Another one Google has is called Chrome Canvas. You can sketch up an image, or you can just do a drawing. The one caveat is this works by far the best on Chromebooks as opposed to other devices. But it's a really nice tool it's got a pencil tool here. I'm gonna make that a little bigger. It's got these big sliders. It's got these sliders for opacity and size. So that's my pencil. I also have a chalk tool. I have layers, so I can add a layer and now draw on that layer instead. Let me make it like a green. Maybe here. Good. It lives at a weird URL, canvas.apps.chrome. Definitely works best on Chromebooks. It doesn't connect to Classroom or Drive just yet, but maybe one day I would love to see that happen. And it's just it's the most advanced of Google's drawing tools. But what if I want one that connects to Google Classroom and saves to Google Drive? Well, in that case, we're going Jamboard. And Jamboard gives us on the web version 4 pens. So students can input with pens. They can input with sticky notes. By the way, with sticky notes, this is why I suggest once you have your kids familiar with Jamboard, you want them collaborating in it, because it really is a free-form brainstorm collaboration tool. Go with 5 collaborators, because you can assign, hey, Monica, I want you to be yellow, and Rachel, I want you to be green, and Phoebe, I want you to be blue, and Joey pink, and Chandler orange. So that's why I like that 5, because it gives a little bit of structure. If I know that, okay, as a student, I only use this one color, keeps track of everyone's contributions. And then there's a shape and a text tool, but there's also an image tool, which is so good. It includes your webcam, which I was not going to work. Yep, there's my camera. Mine gets blocked when I do these Zoom calls, but I can do a Google image search. And so I'll do one. Oh, you know what? Here, I'll do Beaumont, Texas. There it is. And this is some building. I'm sure it's a cool building. It's there. And so you see, I love having these different ways to input things and convey ideas, and then I can duplicate and all that good stuff. So Jamboard is nice for that. Really, when it comes to these drawing tools, it's really, what's your need? What are you trying to accomplish as far as which tool should you go with? So I like to say, I put it on slide 27. I have a little slide there, there we go. Are you trying to save to Google Drive? Then you're going to use Jamboard. Are you doing, if no students sign in auto draw? Students have touchscreens, especially Chromebooks, Chrome Canvas. Students don't have touchscreens, use auto draw, right? Anyway, these are just some suggestions. Here are some academic things that students can draw. Everything from drawing a recipe in a home ec class to the water cycle in a science class. There are just so many different things that can be drawn, and to do it in a way that's digital. One thing I like about digital drawing is The the undo button's perfect. It's the best eraser ever invented, right? All right, and then on this slide, this is a great link to, it's called the one pager. It's an article about incorporating art into every subject and how this teacher does it through the strategy she uses called the one pager. It's a really good read. I highly recommend it. It's just, the research is very clear about this. So getting drawing and art into subjects is a good thing. All right, and then let's talk about, we're in multiple choice, right? We got 15 minutes left. We're in assessment. Let's talk about multiple choice. So in an open book era, how can we use multiple choice data to empower learners? And so I'll just get into some pedagogical things here, a little defensive multiple choice assessment. This isn't a defensive standardized testing, but of multiple choice as part of the regular academic routine. You can easily include multimedia. It gives students a chance to quickly revisit what you taught. Try to write ungoogleable application questions. All right, assessment is part of the learning process. So they go back, they revisit it, they relearn or correct things they don't know. I highly recommend eliminating numbers and answer choices, because that way, if a first period student takes the test and at lunchtime, they talk to their friend in my last period class and they say, "Ooh, Mulaney's French Revolution test was really difficult." You have to remember that the extreme left party was the Jacobins. I don't know why that's hard to remember. I don't think that is hard to remember, but that's my example. If the question was 23 and the answer was C, Jacobins, then that student says to their friend, "Hey, you got to know 23 is C. Hardest question, 23, C." That conversation without numbers and letters is Jacobins. They're the left party. Anyway, that's a content conversation. They can, and they're doing it outside of my classroom. They can have that conversation all day. As the teacher, I'm thrilled. Practicality. So PLNs can easily share and collaborate. They're self-grading, saves you time. Students receive immediate feedback. Teachers receive immediate data. I mean, this sounds good. This is good stuff, right? It's easier to assess more often. It's easier to edit in the future. It works with assistive technology, and you can say bye-bye to that terrible photocopy. All right, so we talk about Google Forms, and you know what? I'm just going to go to a real quick example that I like with Google Forms. Quiz mode, great for feedback. You can link to any website. You can link to anything on the feedback. So remember we talked about this? Here's the slides. Remember we talked about this? Here's a YouTube video that explains it. I highly recommend, and I'll just show you real quick, when you do Google Forms, please, because a Google form is like, if we look at these demographic questions here, right? All this is text and white pixels. That is so boring. Think about your entrance tickets, your bell ringers, your exit tickets. That is a lost opportunity right there. Your kids could be making connections and could be engaged if only they had some imagery or something to hook their brain to what they have. And so here for this first question, I put an image for each answer. For the second question, I just put the image for the question. Now, just to show you how to do that, anytime you're in Google Forms, you just right there, just because I'm in the field with the question, this question icon or this image icon comes up. And again, you could actually use your camera. So if something was like a lab report situation or science, then you could hold something up and say, yeah, like what is show a vial or something, I don't know, but you get my point. And then the same goes for the choices. So here under the sans-culottes questions, I click any one of these. The second you're in it or hover over it, you get that icon, which is really, really nice. It does have Google image search. Remember, Google image search, you're getting licensed, copyright friendly licensed images. So it's all Wikipedia, but you're not going to get the most amazing memes and GIFs and stuff like that, just so you know. Okay, let's continue here. And we will wrap up, well, it's relatively soon. And there, I just an example of feedback. So if it's not correct, great, throw in a video. I use Screencastify to make quick little 1-minute videos about my, just take my vocabulary list. Each one is a 1-minute video. This is what sans-culottes were. So if they get it wrong, they see that, they can watch the video to help get it correct. Another one is called Socrative. Love Socrative because it is self-grading, it's multiple choice, and it can do a little space race thing where it breaks up your students into teams. And so you all do a space race, really, really nice. And it generates a report of results. From there, formative, Go Formative, I am a big fan of. And the reason is this. In Go Formative, you can have a drawing question. So the example I always use, and it's goformative.com. If you type formative into Google, you'll never find it, right? But if you go to goformative.com, the reason I like it is you can have a little drawing for assessment. What happens is you either put a little canvas, a little map or diagram for them to draw on top of, or leave it blank. So my example for that is the Schlieffen Plan in World War I, where Germany invaded France, but they went through Belgium. That was the Schlieffen Plan. Go through Belgium. That's going to cause England to join the war, whatever. I could have my kids draw the Schlieffen Plan. I could do it in Go Formative. Now I can choose, do I want to give them a blank so that they have to draw, here's Germany, here's Belgium, here's France, or I could just give them a Europe 1914 map and say, draw the Schlieffen Plan using that. And all I need to see is just an arrow going from Germany into France through Belgium, and you got the answer right. But I can see every student as they do it. So that is really, really cool. And the question type is called Show Your Work. All right, timed assessment. Now we are getting back to more in-person learning, right? By the time we get to school next year, August, September, this might not be as big a concern. What I would say is that if you're in a situation with remote learning, and who knows what the next, who knows if there's going to be a COVID 21 or 22. I don't know. I have no way of knowing, right? None of us in June 2019 could imagine what was coming around the corner. But when you have kids in a remote situation, I highly discourage timed assessment. It's a stressful situation. We have technology going on. It's not very equitable to then say you have to have all these done in the next 60 seconds or 90, whatever it might be. So I discourage that. However, timed assessment, a little beat the clock, can be fun if we do it the right way and we don't punish kids with it. And the website I'm going to suggest for that is Quizzes. Quizzes includes a Google Classroom integration, and you can have it timed and it's fun. So it includes a math equation editor, which is very, very beneficial, right? Math teachers love that. They need that. So if you want to get timed, do it for fun, do it for review, do it for practice with Quizzes, but I just would discourage you from using the grades. When we get back totally, I don't, I think we'd have to think about, is this, making it a beat the clock situation, is that student friendly, yes or no? An Ed puzzle. So I have a YouTube video I want my kids to see, whatever it may be. It may be John Green's crash course. It may be me teaching a lesson, and I want my kids to answer questions as they go. It's accountability. It's, are they getting it? Ed puzzle, please. Ed puzzle is just like it's the bee's knees. It's a freemium tool. So, it's not unlimited as far as how many, I don't know what the exact restrictions are, but I highly recommend you at least start with it for certain videos. You can give feedback for correct and incorrect answers. They see that right after they answer each question. You can crop and edit and cut YouTube videos now. It's so cool what you can do with Edpuzzle. And it just makes you as a teacher able to customize YouTube in a really, really nice way, and add your notes, your questions, multiple choice and short answer, and your audio, basically your text notes and audio notes too, which is really nice. All right, I do have some assessments here, but we will actually, right now, I will stop the recording. I will have you all do the feedback. Thank you. You've been a great crowd. I appreciate it. Thank you, Lynn. I've enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm going to stop the recording and then give you all the survey. So let's stop recording.